Bald and ready. Okay, so here we go. We're checking this out again. We're doing a little more in Revit. We're actually thinking of building some structures. Over here we've got in Rhino surfaces that are created, a little bit of post and pre GHPYTHON node to create this script on top of a surface. I'm just continuing with the past ones and using the scripts out of the GHPYTHON computational book I pulled in from China. So here are the scripts. If you want to take a look at them, I still encourage you to get the book and play around with them, and certainly don't be stuck on things, and be at least inquisitive and experimental when it comes to pulling in math and importing in random. Uh, uh, Whether I use it or not in here, it's always an option. Random, and see what you can do in here. The script itself is fairly simple. What I'm doing is I'm definitely going into Rhino. I'm pulling out a surface, which should be here. There it is. And if that surface is changed, then everything updates in Rhino and Revit, which is nice. And if you want to take a little pivot, no problem. Just twist it around, and there you go. You're changing the escape there, and then you can raise and lower. And with a shift, you can kind of pivot around in Revit, see what's happening. But with that surface, all I'm doing is going in and I am inputting that into a Python node here, which needs a surface. It needs integers at a U and V divide, and it needs a radius A, a height B, a radius B, a height C, and a radius C, all set to floats on type hints. And once again, I want you to get the book to do this. You're going to bring in and you're going to set your domain U and domain B by domain surface domain, surface to 0, which is U, and surface to 1, which is B. You would then will divide using an average by taking domain U at 1 and domain U at 0 and dividing that by U divide and V divide, which are parameters which you can totally play with. So if I was to alter this and change the U and V divide, obviously I have more or less. I don't have to keep them the same. I can definitely go in and copy and say, okay, let's make them a little different by pulling in the U and V divide differently and set 1 to 3 and 1 to 4. I have to zoom in here to do that, make sure I hit it accurately. There you go. So a little bit of divide, but it does jump off the surface a bit, which I think is interesting. Things aren't behaving as well as they should if I don't have even numbers. So I will play a little bit with that, find out what's wrong with my script, but they do work well. No, they do work well when you have them set to the exact same amount. So if they're both set to 3 or if they're both set to 2, it seems to run pretty nice in this script. So I'm just playing around and pivoting. Keep in mind in Revit, you've got to hold down Shift before you do the pivot, and in Rhino, you can just grab the right mouse button. And I always like my standard zoom extends all to keep things centered so I can spin around and see what's going on. When you do select things in Grasshopper, you're only getting, actually I'm getting the highlight in Revit now, which sometimes I don't get. So that's kind of interesting to think about. I'm just going to push down my middle scroll wheel and center that. The script itself then takes a tube list, and I'm keeping the point list just as a list in case I do want to use it, but I'm actually not outputting it at this point. I was going to down here and keep appending it, but we'll just leave it there for the sake of past scripts use it. Double iteration through I and J, creating a point, it evaluates surface, the normal, and the plane A, and then creating circles on those points. And that's basically what's been generated as circle A. I create a vector B from the height C, which is parametric as well, so you can come in here and say, okay, which one was height C and how can I play with that? So if I alter height C, you'll see that things start to jump around a little different, create some different geometries on there, which are kind of interesting. And of course, they depend on going smallest to largest. It's probably best to set these parameters if you want to see something that's kind of sensible, I believe. Just let me check for a second. Keep your first one pretty low. Bring that one down pretty low in its number. I'll break down to 0.3, and that's playing into, actually it might be nice if I just take these 3 and slide them over here into radius A. Keep my next one, yeah, it doesn't matter where that one is. I'll break it down a little bit just to change that. Once again, I'll take the height B, keep that fairly large. Height B is large. And then low, high, and low. So I'll bring this one down as low radius, high height, and low radius again in the end. And we get different shapes as we go on top of those surfaces, which can be kind of fun. And you can always go back into your original here and scale the whole thing back if you thought that it was not comparable to the sizes that you were dealing with. You want to see them a little larger. So there we go. Tuck that one away. Still have a pretty interesting shape as we're going through. The script then creates a vector C, which is the height C times normal, point C, copy object and moving that. The plane C is created then from the point C in the normal, from a plane from normals, and a circle C is then created. The tube is constructed, which is very interesting. I'd never done that before, and I probably should get in the habit of hitting enter after this, and it'll still run the same, but you can see a tube. This is all one line in these parentheses. You'll need circle A, B, C as a list, and then you'll have to put down none, none, 0, 0, 0, and false, which all are the parameters that are necessary for building a tube. And I'm pretty sure that's related to capping and such, and where to center it and whatever to loft it from. And I guess that's the loft action of taking kind of 3 circles and lofting between them. So that's totally new and stuff that I was actually playing with outside of the Python node. So I've got to get that one down and start thinking about that as an extra function within Rhino script syntax, not trying to translate it into the Rhino common this time. Print tube list, and then tube list is extend the tube as opposed to append the tube, which is a new thing as well. So very nice little script, tasty little thing. And what I'd ended up doing was ended with that. And what I did before that, when I went into the surfaces, is I didn't want to just have it on a single surface, which would be this top surface. I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll debrep that, take the corners, and in taking the corners, I will take and lower the 4 edges, 1, 2, 3, 4 from the debrep, and I will lower it in the Z direction so I can control how far down that is and how far up that is. And when I'm done, you can see it registers. And then I'm able to split those up into a list item. So maybe it would be nice to throw in bifocals if you have that plug-in. You can see that I'm using a list item. And then I loft between these two these two pairs, and these 2 pairs, and then merge them all into one thing. And I'm not really doing the merge well. I should actually probably bring that one in, that one in, that one in, and that one in. Otherwise, it's not really a merge tool, but it works the same. I then graft it so I end up with different. I don't end up with and actually, I think I lost one. Hang on, and something went on. Hang on a second. I've lost my original surface, so I won't get any copy on the top. I'll only get the edges, so let's bring in that last one. And there we go. I get the items on the top as well. And then all of those items are brought in, grafted on a list of lists, as you can see here by the dashed line, into the same formula. And you're starting to understand data trees. And you built a building with these strange little cones on it, which is fine. And then what you can do is you can go back into Revit, and you can play around with possibly going in, and I'll try and do this fairly quickly, even though I'm not very good at it. We can take that front layer right here, and we could actually create, even though my screen's kind of small, I could create a modify architecture, put in a floor, and this is where, when you're all said and done with your Grasshopper and your Rhino, you might want to go in and decide, might want to go in and decide, ooh, what happened? Modify architecture. Oh boy, hang on. I popped it in too much. Modify create. Let's end that. Go back into architecture, go into the floor, and say, let's do a floor architectural. And it'll say, where do you want to do that? And I'll probably, on properties, create a square floor. I guess going back into the top view. Where is it? And just make a nice big floor like that. And hopefully that comes out in the properties associated with that floor. If I go in here, I'm just going to hit cancel, grab this floor, which is generated there, or at least the 4 sides of that floor. I should be able to go into properties on that, which I'm still fairly new at, and then set it to a certain properties that I've got. So yeah, got to go into properties and say, okay, what kind of floor do I want with that? And that's strange that I'm getting all of those 4 floors. That's something new to me, so I've got to figure out Revit a little better. But basically, I'd want to put on a type of floor, and I'm having a little trouble with that. So I'm going to go back into there, create and modify, stop that. Quitting cannot be done. Are you sure you want to discard the floor? Yes. I'll try again later to put in a proper floor. And like I said, I'm new to Revit, so I'm playing around with that, trying to figure out what I want to do. And actually, I don't want to put a floor in there. I'll probably want to go back in and set my program first to lower that, so I actually can sit some of those template floors before I start. So definitely either I could extend it all the way down into that floor, and then double check that on level 1. Holding down shift and pivoting, it looks like it actually might hit it at that point, and then I can put in my floor and cut it off. And I'm not really, I'm thinking ahead and I'm saying, okay, what do I Boolean difference or Boolean union that? But this is still an open kind of box within the Revit window, and I haven't closed it off. But like I said, it's learning the whole system. I'm going through the ArchiStar Academy while I'm doing it, trying to learn as much as I can about Revit as I go. And this is a nice little program. I've done the Rhino, the Grasshopper, and the GHPYTHON, and the Fusion 360, and the Illustrator, and Photoshop, and all these other things. But I've not gotten all the way through the Revit tools yet, and that's a nice little beginner level of essentials. Keep in mind that I'm completely self-taught on this manner, and I've enjoyed it since the beginning. I'll make myself a little more competent as I go, but I have no problem embarrassing myself and showing what I do when I do not know. And in the end, you're left with, okay, where do we go from here? What are we doing? And I think it's pulling as much as we can together at once. Anyway, I'll leave that at that. I guess we're at 14 minutes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see where the next script goes with pattern by surface curvatures, which look pretty interesting. And I'll try and learn a little more about Revit while I'm at it. Okay, thanks for watching.